Today's Daf Yomi. We're going to start on top of Ayin Ches Amud 78a at the very top. And today's Daf Yomi is dedicated for Yeshua, for Atzoah, for Geula, for Am Yisrael in this difficult Eis Tzara. Special attention paid to those in captivity, special tefillos that they be released, and special tefillos to protect those selfless people, men and women who are the Chayalim, protecting not only Jews in Israel, but around the world. So top of Ayin Chasam and Aleph, Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, Kohen Gadol Ba'almana. Let's say you have a Kohen Gadol, he's not allowed to be with a widow. It says he's not allowed to take her, and he's not allowed to lo yachalel zaro. So if a Kohen Gadol is with a widow, lo kashtayim, we're going to give him two sets of lashes. Achas mishum, one because the pasuk says lo yikach. As lo yikach, he's not allowed to take an almana, grusha, challah, zona, as lo yikach, so he's not allowed to marry her. Achas mishum lo yichalel, and one is because when he's with her, he makes her a halal, and therefore he makes it so she can't marry any other kohen. So the Gemara says, "V'lokal nami mishum lo yichalel zaro." We should also give him another set of lashes because by being with her, he's making his offspring into a halal. And that's a violation of the prohibition, lo yichalel zaro. He can't desecrate his seed. Gemara says, Bishalo gamar biyaso, that there was no zera. He didn't complete his biyah. So she became disqualified just by him being with her. But in order to be a violation of the lo yichalel zaro, he'd have to produce seed. And so therefore, so that's why he sets two sets of lashes and not three. That's the position of Rav Yehuda. Gemara says, Rava challenges Rav Yehuda. Masav Rava, Amano Grusha. It says that in Makos in the Mishnah, and Amana, a widow and a divorcee, Loke Mishum Shnei Shemos. They're going to get two sets of lashes. One for because she's a widow, and the other because she's a divorcee. So don't we see from here, Malav Shnei Shemos V'sulo, so he only gets two lashes, but he doesn't get four. Versus no, lo, Shnei Shemos al Zev, Shnei Shemos al Zev. No, he's going to get four lashes, but two because she's a widow, and two because she's a divorcee. Gemara says, well, Yachi, if that's the case, what about the next clause in the Mishnah Makos? Ema Seifa Grusha V'chalutza Eino Chayav El Al Achas. If she was a widow or a divorcee, if she was a divorcee and a widow, he's only liable for one. For the grusha, he's liable for all the prohibitions that are dependent upon it. But for the chalutza, he's not going to be liable, as we'll see in a moment, because the chalutza is not biblical. So we see from here that for the divorcee, he's only liable for one, but not for two sets. And Mar said, no. He's only liable for one of them, either the grusha or chalutza, but really he's going to be liable for Shnei Shemos from so he's really only going to be liable for one of them, and really, but that one that he's liable, the grusha, is liable twice. He's liable for lo yikach and lo yichalel zaro. So the Gemara says v'chalutza derabanan, and we want to say the chalutza is rabbinic, and therefore is not liable for lashes for being with a woman who was a chalitza. We don't say that, biblically speaking, she's a divorcee. Tanya, but don't we have a brayso that says, Grusha, ainli ela grusha, I only know you're liable, the Kohen is liable for being with a divorcee. Chalutza minayin, how do we know if there's a woman who underwent chalitza where she was freed to marry somebody from the marketplace from her yavam? How do I know that under those circumstances he's going to be liable? Tam Homer, the Isha. It says in the pasuk, the Isha, and that teaches us from the fact that it says the Isha. We learn from here that the extra vav teaches us to include a chalutza. Gemara says that's a midrabanan, that's rabbinic. Cross and the verse is only a support; it's not required. Amar Abaye teaches us Kiddush that if the Kohen would betroth the woman who's a widow, the Kohen Gadol Loki is going to get lashes for betrothing her. Baal, and then if he has bia with this woman who's a widow, okay, he's going to get another set of lashes. Kidesh loke mishum lo yikach. If he betroths her, he gets lashes because of lo yikach. Baal, when he has bia with her, loke mishum lo yachalo. He's going to get a second set of lashes for lo yachalo. Whereas Rava says Baal loke, that only if he actually has bia with her will he get lashes. Lo Baal eno loke. But if he doesn't have the bia with her, he's not going to get the lashes. Mishum dersiv, because the pasuk states lo yikach v'lo yichalel, meaning to say ma'atam lo yikach. What's the reason why the Kohen Gadol cannot take her? Mishum lo yichalel, only if it will lead to the bia. But if there's no bia, he's not going to get the lashes. So Moda Abaye, but Abaye will agree with Rava, but machzer grushaso, that if it was a Kohen who divorced his wife and then he remarried her, she'im kidesh v'lo baal, that if he just did the betrothal and didn't have the bia, she'eno loka. Why? That she's not going to get the lashes, because it says in the pasuk lekachta v'yoslo isha. Because it says in the pasuk lekachta v'yoslo isha, that he took her to be for him as a wife. So it's only going to be a problem if he has the bia. He's only going to get the lash if he has the bia. Well, because Umoda Rava, and Rava agrees with the Abaye, the Kohen Gadol Ba'almana, by the Kohen Gadol with the widow, Shem Baal, that if they have the Bia, below Kidesh, but there wasn't the betrothal first, Shaloka, that he would get the lashes, because it says, V'lo Yechalel Zaro Ba'amav Amrachmana, says you can't do the Chilul Zera, V'arehu Chilel. He did the Chilel. Ushneim modim b'machzer grushaso, and both of them admit that in the case of machzer grushaso, shem baal v'lo kidesh, that both of them admit in the case of machzer grushaso that if he would do the bia, but he would not have betrothed her, she'eno loka. Both of them would agree under those circumstances, if he's with his ex-wife without Kiddushin, that the Kohen does not get lashes, because derech likuchen asur Torah. When the Torah does prohibit this woman, it's only via derech likuchen. Rabbi Yehuda says, bas ker zachar kebas chalal. Rabbi Yehuda says that if it is the daughter of a male convert, that is like the daughter of a halal. That's like the daughter of a halal. What does that mean? Baz ker zachar kebas halal. That just like the daughter of a halal cannot marry a Kohen, so too the daughter of a male convert cannot marry a Kohen. That's what Rabbi Yehuda is saying. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer baz ker zachar kebas halal. Rabbi Yehuda says the daughter of a male convert is like the daughter of a halal zachar, that she cannot marry a Kohen. Vadin no saint, says the Gemara, and it's going to be logical to assume that. Why? Ma halal, just like a halal shabami tipa kashera, that the father of the halal was a Kohen, he was a kosher person, and bito psula, meaning to say just like a halal, that the halal himself came from a tipa kashera, and he came from a kosher seed. His father was originally a Kohen, was kosher, bito psula, and yet his offspring is going to be disqualified. Ger shabami tipa psula, a convert came from somebody who's not allowed to marry into the community. How so? His father wasn't Jewish. Din should be to psula for sure. His daughter should be disqualified to marry a Kohen. Mar says, what kind of argument is that? Malach halal shekain yitziraso ba'avera. What about a halal? His offspring is created in. The halal was created in sin. How can you say the argument from a halal? The halal was created in sin. Malach halal shekain yitziraso ba'avera. The halal was created in sin, unlike the convert wasn't created in sin. So the Gemara says, okay, Kohen Gadol Ba'almana Yochiach will prove that the male convert's daughter cannot marry a Kohen from a Kohen Gadol and a widow. She'ein Yitzirasa Be'avera, the Kohen Gadol was not created in sin, and yet Bito Psua, but yet his daughter will be disqualified. The Gemara says, yeah, but that's no good. Malach Kohen Gadol Ba'almana She'kein Biyasa Ba'avera, but that union, the Kohen Gadol and the widow, was a union of sin. The Gemara says, Chol Yochiach, Well, the Chalal will prove because that's not a union of sin. Chazor adin lo rizeh krizeh. What's the tzara shava shava? And what's the common denominator? She'enon berov kahal. That that they are not included berov kahal, meaning to say that the tzara shava shabahan, the common denominator between the Kohen Gadol and the widow and the Chalal, and that they're not included in the majority of the community, because one was created in sin, and one was created in sin, and the other one was that they both were created in sin, or they both did a sin. Also bring the convert she'eno barov kal. So also the convert is like that because he can't marry into, because he does not come from the majority of the community, because he was born from a tipa psula, and so therefore his bito should be psula. Therefore his daughter should be disqualified. So the Gemara says, but what are you talking about? But they have a different common denominator. What's that? The different common denominators. Shekain yesh b'hem tzaraver, both the Kohen Gadol and the widow, and the Chalal and his have this aspect of a sin associated with them. The Chalal comes from a sinful union, and the Kohen Gadol and the widow is a sinful union. Unlike the Ger, there is no sinful union. So the Gemara says, Lo tema Kohen Gadol b'almana. Okay, so let's substitute out the case of the Kohen Gadol and the widow. Don't say that that's what's proving it. Lo tema Kohen Gadol b'almana yochiach or ema mitzri rishon yochiach. We'll say we'll prove this case that the offspring of a convert cannot marry Kohen from a mitzri rishon, from a first generation Egyptian who was with another Egyptian woman first generation. Malamit. So meaning to say, we'll prove it from that they were not created in sin, and they did not have a union in sin, and yet their daughter is prohibited to marry into the community. Gemara says you can't learn anything out from that. Why? The Mitzri Rishon is not allowed to marry into the community, into the regular community. So the Gemara says, well, Chalal yochiach, that the Chalal's offspring, the Chalal himself is allowed to marry into the community, and his daughter is disqualified. The Chalal are din lo rizeh krizeh. What's the tzad shava shaban? That both the Chalal and the Mitzri Rishon she'enan barov kal, they're both not part of the rov, the majority of the community. Ubito psua, and both of their daughters are disqualified. Afani avia seger she'eno barov kal ubito psua. So I'll include the convert. He's not from the majority of the community, and his daughter is disqualified. So the Gemara says, "B'mal tzad hashavas ben she'came poslam b'viyasam." If they have a different aspect, that both the Chalal and the first generation Egyptian, if they're with a woman, they disqualify her with their pia from being with a Kohen. Unlike the convert doesn't disqualify a woman if he's with her from being with a Kohen. Rabbi Yehuda, so the Gemara says that's not a good proof. So the Gemara says, Chalal yochiach. Excuse me. So the Gemara says, therefore the Gemara has basically said that we haven't been able to learn it, and therefore the Gemara hasn't been able to learn it right. The Gemara hasn't actually found the proof. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda ger nami posel b'biyaso. According to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that the daughter of a ger is disqualified from a kahuna, he should say that a regular ger also should disqualify with his biyah. And he would learn this out. So the Gemara says, no, Rabbi Yehuda's position is going to be, we have to say this chiddush, which we didn't know till now, that Rabbi Yehuda must be of the position that if a male convert is with a female, he's disqualified her from marrying a Kohen. We don't paskin like that, but that's what Rabbi Yehuda has to do. And how does he learn it? He learns it out from the common denominator from this law, by comparing it to a halal and a Mitzri Rishon. So now the Gemara says, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov said, Elazar ben Yaakov was of the position that if a man married a female convert, his daughter is kshera to the kahuna. If a man married a female convert, the daughter of the female convert is kosher for a kohen. And if a man married a Bas Yisrael, his daughter is kosher for the kahuna as well. So basically, Rabbi Elazar's other position is that as long as one of the parents is born Jewish, the offspring can marry a Kohen. So the Gemara says, Tanya, Rabbi Shimon Yochai says, let's say you have a female convert and she's less than 3 years old, she can marry a Kohen. Shenemar, how do we learn this out? Because it says, when they return from the battle of Midian, it says all the little babies, females, but Pinchas was with them. And Pinchas was a Kohen, and he was allowed to marry them. So we see from here that Rabbi Shimon Yochai is saying that somebody under the age of 3 can marry a Kohen. Mar says, the Rabbanan, who are you, Rabbi Shimon Yochai? What do they say? No, what does it mean when it says they can live? It means lavadim u'shvachos. It means you can keep them to be your slaves. And the Gemara says, all these different shitos, all these Tanaim, they derive it from the same pasuk. What's the pasuk? It says in Yechezkel, it says Almana v'grusha lo yaklu ha'emunashim, that the Kohen Gadol, it says there, the Kohen cannot marry a widow or divorcee. Kim besulos mizera beis Israel. They can only marry a virgin. So we would think that refers to a Kohen Gadol, but we'll see it's not so simple. Rabbi Yehuda says that a Kohen can only marry somebody ad is kol zera Yisrael, that both parents need to have been born Jewish, meaning to say the father needs to have been born Jewish, and so therefore, because kol zera, the zera, and so therefore, if he's the daughter of a male convert, it's going to be disqualified. Whereas Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says, "Mizera v'afilu mitzah zera," even if only there's a little seed from Israel, meaning to say that the seed of the mother would be sufficient. Whereas Rabbi Yosi's of the position, Misha Nizru be Israel, somebody who was when she was conceived, she came from somebody who was zera of a Jew, and so therefore, even the daughter of 2 converts can marry a Kohen. Rabbi Shimon Yochai Savar Mishin Israel Besulah B'Yisrael. He said no, somebody who, when their Besulah was formed, i.e. at the age of 3, they were Jewish, and so therefore, even if they convert under the age of 3, they can marry a Kohen. Amalei Rav Nachman LaRava. Rav Nachman says to Rav on top of Ayin Chesam Abeis, Haikra Reish of a Kohen Gadol v'Seif of a Kohen Hedjo. It doesn't make sense because the first part of this pasuk talks about not being allowed to marry a widow, and then the last part of the pasuk says, talking about a divorcee. Because the first part of the pasuk says, "Lo yichulu nashim kim besulas." They can only marry a virgin. That's a Kohen Gadol. The Seif at the end of the pasuk says that you can marry a widow. So the first part of the pasuk is talking about a Kohen Gadol, and the last part of the pasuk is talking about a regular Kohen. Does that make sense? I raise a Kohen Gadol, a Seif of a Kohen Hedjo. I'm really in. Yes, there are some psukim that are like that. That's exactly the case. So the Gemara says, "Because of krahach, do we have other psukim like that?" It says yes. I'll give you another example. I'm really in the Chsiv. We have by Shmuel and Navi in the chapter 3 of the book of Shmuel. It says, "V'ner Elokim Terem Yichbad." Before the light of the menorah went out, and Shmuel, this is the first time where Shmuel got the prophecy. Shmuel Shochev Be'ech Hashem. Shmuel was lying down, but Shmuel was a Levi. He was lying down in the sanctuary. But how could it be? The only person who could sit in the courtyard was kings of the temple or the kings from the house of David. So it must be that we have to bifurcate the verse. The menorah's light almost went out in the sanctuary, and Shmuel was lying down in his place when he heard the word of God. And then it says, in the pasuk says, the Gemara, let's go back to that pasuk from Yechezkel, the widow will be a widow from a Kohen. That's the one who a Kohen can marry. So you mean to say a Kohen can only marry a woman who is widowed from a Kohen? Does that make sense? The Kohen in Yisrael, only from a Kohen, but not from Yisrael. The Gemara says, Hachakamar. Mikohen yikachu Mishar Kohanim Mishar Kohanim Mikon Yikachu Mishar Kohanim, but from so the Gemara says, this is how you read it. Mikohen Yikachu Mishar Kohanim. But that from a Kohen means somebody who's from other Kohen, not a Kohen Gadol, that's you could take it. And Tayanam Yachim Mikohen Yikachu Mishar Kohanim Yachu. Somebody who's from the other Kohanim, they could take this woman as who is a widow. Rabbi Yehuda gives a different explanation. Rabbi Yehuda says, Min Masiyim Kahuna Yichu. No, so that the Kohen can marry somebody from somebody who is worthy to marry a Kohen, meaning to say that they had good yichus. And the verse is telling us that he shouldn't take the widow of a convert, according to Rabbi Yehuda, whose daughter cannot marry a Kohen, because Rabbi Yehuda follows his logic, who says, Da'amar baz ger zachar b'baz chalal zachar. He says that just like you can't marry the offspring of a male halal, so too you can't marry the offspring of a male convert. And then Rabbi Yehuda has another principle, and we have a principle that says, Kol shata nosa bito ata nosa almanosa. You can only marry, anyway, you can marry the daughter, you can marry the widow, but Kol shayata nosa bito, just like you can't marry the daughter here, yata nosa almanusa, so you can't marry the widow of a male convert. That's how Rabbi Yehuda reads this verse. Rabbi Yossi says, Avger shenasa giores. Rabbi Yossi says also a convert that marries a female convert, that their daughter can marry a Kohen. Amar Avamnuna Mishmedula Rabbi Yossi. The law is like Rabbi Yossi. And the Gemara says, V'chein Amar Rav Barchana Rabbi Yossi. Umiyom Shachar Beis HaMikdash, when the temple was destroyed, Nagu Kohanim Silsol. When the Kohanim acted with a silsol. What's a silsol? Rashi says it's a mala. It's a mila. They had all the milos, as we say, and they accepted upon themselves an extra stringency. Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov, that they would not argue if the father was a convert. They would not allow. Meaning to say they followed the position of Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov that they only allowed a woman to marry who she had at least one parent who was Jewish, only if either her father or mother was Jewish. Amar Nachman Amar Yehuna Bali Malech Maramok Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov. If they come to ask a shayla, you should only marry a daughter of a convert if there's at least one of the parents was Jewish. But if she actually got married already to the Kohen, we don't make them get divorced. To Rabbi Yossi, as long as she's born Jewish, then we allow her to marry a Kohen. But not like Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, who says that as long as she was 3 years old when she converted, we allow her to marry a Kohen. So now we're up to the next Mishnah. Omer b'ni zeh mamzer. A man comes forward and says, look, my son is a mamzer. Eino nema. We're not going to believe the father to make the claim that the offspring is a mamzer. Even if both the mother and the father say, yes, it's true, this kid is a mamzer, we don't believe them. They need witnesses. Al uber shavimei mamzer. Let's say afilu shneim modim al uber shavimei mamzer. Shavimei mamzer, who even if both of them admit about the fetus inside her stomach and they say this fetus is a mamzer, einim nemanim, we don't believe them. Rabbi Yehuda says nemanim. Rabbi Yehuda says we do believe them. What does it mean? Even both of them admitted that this fetus is a mamzer. We don't believe them. Lomi by a comer, meaning to say not only this. Lomi by ihu delo kimway. Not only him would we not believe him, because really, how can he know for certain if his wife became pregnant from him or somebody else? Which is a little bit difficult, because the father could say, listen, I know for sure that this woman was born to somebody who was prohibited to me. So still, we don't believe him under this case. But whether, even if she would be the one to make the claim, the Kimway, she could know for sure that she became pregnant from this man and not from somebody else. Nevertheless, lo mehemne, we don't believe her. And not only in a circumstance where the son has a presumptive status of being kosher, he's been 25 years old, he's been studying in Lakewood his whole life, all of a sudden the parents show up and say, actually your mom's there. No, not only then do we not believe them, Even if he's still a fetus, he's in the womb. Still, we're still not going to believe the parents. They need to have witnesses. And Rabbi Yehuda says we believe them. Kedetanya, Rabbi Yehuda says we believe them. Like we learned in the Brisa, the pasuk says Yakirenu, Yakir, that we believe the father means Yakirenu Lachir, and we believe them to testify to other people to say this offspring is a mamzer. Mikana Rabbi Yehuda, from here Rabbi Yehuda taught Neman Adam Omar Zebani Bechor. A man is believed to say this is my firstborn son. Kshem Sheneman Adam Omar Zebani Bechor. Just like he's believed to say this is my firstborn son. Kach Neman Adam Omar Zeben Grusha Zemechahutza. He's believed to say he's the son of a divorcee. We believe him. Chachamim say we don't believe the father. Normally, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak or Rav Abisham or Rabbi Yehuda Mixon, according to Rabbi Yehuda, says we believe Hainu Del Sev Yakir. That's why it says the father can recognize. Rabbanan Yakir Lamalei. But according to Rabbanan, what do they do with the pasuk that says Yakir, which says that the father is believed? So the Gemara says B'tzarach Hakira. We're talking about a case where the father needs to tell us who the firstborn is. So why? Why would we need the father to tell us who the firstborn is? Why would we need the father to tell us who the firstborn is? Gemara says, let's say slow pishnaim, if it's to give him a double portion. Pshita, it's obviously the case that we believe the father gave him a double portion. Why would we need a pasuk to tell us that? Migu the ibai miazvele matana, miwo yahavile. Since if he wanted to, we could always give him the money as a gift. So since if he wanted to, we could always give him all the money as a gift. Of course, we believe him to say that this is my firstborn son. Where says no. So no, we're talking about a case. Well, let's say the father gave him the money, and then after the father went overseas, and then money was inherited by the father after that fact. So that was money that he didn't have at that moment. So there, he couldn't have given it to him. Because we follow the position where Rabbi Meir, according to Rabbi Meir, says that money that's not yet yours. So Gemara says, well, according to Rabbi Meir, it says that according to Rabbi Meir, it says that the father could have given him the money even though he didn't have it yet. According to him, what do we do with the words Yakir, Ramoi? So we're talking about a case, well, he got the money when he was very sick. And so therefore, his father couldn't have given it to the son. And so still we believe him if he would say that this was his firstborn son. Okay, this is today's Daf Yomi. We'll stop the recording here. If anybody has any questions, happy to address. Yasha Koach.